Good evening from Chicago, Illinois. I am Brian Morales, and this is the Global Coalition to Address Synthetic Drug Threats, Sub-Working Group 3.3. I'm going to ask Sarah if she can get started in screen sharing. And this is our July session. Friends, we are coming to the end of our Global Coalition sub-working groups. We only have the month of August and September left. But I want to share with you a lot of the activities, a lot of the initiatives that have taken place over the past weeks with the Synthetics Coalition. Some of you may know that from June 24th to June 28th, many of us participated in the ISUP event. ISUP is the International Society of Substance Use Professionals, and its annual meeting. This was the ninth annual meeting, took place in the city of Thessaloniki, Greece, where over 1,000 participants came together in over 30 trainings, events, and other activities. On the 26th of June, we celebrated World Drug Day. That took place there, but in addition to the celebrations there in Thessaloniki, UNODC in Vienna, Austria also marked the occasion by launching the World Drug Report 2024. And if you have not taken a look at that report, I encourage you to go to the website of UNODC and to read through the sections that cover particularly synthetic drugs and drug consumption. Then on the 7th of July, we marked the one-year anniversary of the ministerial meeting that launched the Global Coalition. And we had social media events that related to that. If you have not seen or would like to see once again the speeches from the 55 ministers or the other sort of content related to the launch of the coalition, including the declaration that was drafted and launched at that time, I invite you to check out the YouTube video or visit our website and under the timeline, and you can see all of those videos. Now, we also took the opportunity of the ISUP meeting to host a meeting of co-chairs. And at the end of my remarks today, I will ask for the video to be played. But June 24th to 25th, we were very fortunate to have 30 out of the 40 co-chairs who were able to meet in person. And they came together with many conclusions. One of them, very interestingly, was the need to create an international mechanism for coordination of donor support on counter-narcotics. And so we are working with UNODC to try to organize the meeting in late August or early October that would bring together not just governments, but also global foundations to try to expand the resources for the issue of drugs. Now, we also discussed an initiative to enhance controls of chemicals and precursors, how to enhance forensic drug testing, how to improve data collection, drug prevention initiatives. So there were a lot of recommendations. What we're looking for in the second year is to focus in on more concrete, specific actions and to start tracking this as a coalition. Now, we also took the opportunity of the ISUP meeting to launch a few networks. We launched the Global Recovery Network, and that was one of the recommendations that came out of our coalition in May. And you could visit the website, globalrecoverynetwork.org, and register yourself or others to join this network. The idea is to help create a global definition for recovery, which is lacking, it's missing. Also to help disseminate training programs at the grassroots level for recovery allies and peer, and to build local recovery networks. We also launched a global women's network that is for providers for women's substance use disorder treatment and recovery services. And you can scan the QR code that you see there, or you can also visit their website. The goal of this network is to provide training, mentorship, assistance, support, tools, resources for counselors that work with women to better meet the unique needs for women's treatment and recovery. Next slide, please. It is not too late to share your coalition reports with actions that you are going to be taking that you have taken over the past year and will be taking for the coming year. Again, you can adopt a new practice, policy, strategy, regulation, or law. You can collaborate with the private sector. You can provide financial or in-kind support, host a regional or global meeting. On our Global Coalition interest directory, 120 initiatives that are there. You can express interest in one of those initiatives off of the menu, or any other act to strengthen your country's response to synthetic drugs. We are asking, again, for no more than 2 pages, and you can email us the report at syntheticscoalition@state.gov. Next slide, please. One more slide. So July, we have programmatic implementation and coalition action planning as the focus. Next month, we will then transition to monitoring and evaluation and ensuring sustainability of our programming. But I also invite you all, if you have not presented over the past 10 months and would like to do so on month 11, we encourage you to do so. You can share your country report of what you're looking at carrying forward in the second year of the coalition. So please reach out to us if you're interested at the earliest opportunity. We will also be in September looking at reviewing year 1 and having sub-working group co-chairs report to working group co-chairs their reflections and their final reports from their sub-working groups. And now it's my pleasure to ask Henki if you could please play the video of the Global Coalition co-chair session that took place in Thessaloniki, Greece during the last week of June, so we can see and share some memories. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the Global Coalition meeting. It's incredible to be here in person. With the pandemic, we all started using screens more and more, and now it's not unusual to have a whole year go by without seeing people in person. But it feels a little bit like Hollywood when you start to see people that you've been seeing on the screen now come to life, and now we're all here in one room. It's quite special. Thank you so much for making the journey.
I can't tell you what a great honor it is for me to be in this room with so many experts from so many different parts of your governments. I am happy to have the opportunity to thank you in person for everything that you have been doing over the past year.
I believe it is important that participant countries reflect on and communicate what their own objectives are as part of the Global Coalition and what they want to achieve over the next 12 months.
I urge us to invest in the hard work of building and supporting capacity in less developed parts of the world. This will require time, building relationships, face-to-face visits, and follow-up meetings.
Every country has challenges, they're just different ones. With synthetic drugs, there are a lot of lessons we can learn from other countries because of their experiences. And no one country can solve this alone. It is a challenge that faces all of us, and whether it's fentanyl or some other drug, in addition to plant-based drugs, we all share the same threat and we have to work together. So our goal for the launch of the coalition last July, which would be 1 year and a week, was to get 50 countries together. We ended up getting 80 countries and 11 international organizations. And now there are 156 countries and 15 different international organizations. And that is because of you all. President Biden has now requested $24 billion just for domestic treatment programs at home. We now have a medical doctor who's the head of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. And all of this really is because of the things that you have done.
To keep the momentum going, to make sure that this attention to the change.
The structure created strike a balance between treatment and prevention.
If we put all these intelligence minds together, we can't go wrong here.
What we want to achieve is that element of networking, knowledge, sharing and learning. But when we come together, there's a magic. There's an energy that happens when people are together in the same room.
The Global Women's Network is I see as an important part of this overall conference because it gives providers from prevention to treatment to recovery that are working with women a place to call home, a place to find their face, their voice, their like-minded spirits within this larger conference.
Recovery is part of the whole continuum of care, and that's why it's a very important component in this conference.
So one thing that I think the coalition needs to do is start looking at some of these issues that are challenging us outside the box.
Okay, very nice. Now I want to turn it over to our co-chairs for today's session, Daulat Baipasov and Aris Mangera. Aris, take it away.
Hi, good morning, Brian. Good morning, everyone. And can I just say that I can't help but smile while watching the video. Probably the question is, can we get a copy of that video?
We will be posting it on our website, the Global Coalition website, and we're happy to share the YouTube link as well.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Now for today, we have actually 3 speakers. Our first speaker is Maria Sol Purita from CCAD. Our second speaker is Sintra Maharaj. And our third speaker is Ian Butcher. So let's have first Maria Sol Purita from CCAD.
Good afternoon to all the distinguished participants of this session. My name is Sol Purita, and on behalf of the Institutional Strengthening Unit of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, CCAD of the Organization of American States, it's a pleasure to present our work on gender in the criminal justice system. I want to thank Canada because this program is being implemented with the financial support of the Anti-Crime Capacity Building Program of the Government of Canada to promote the development and implementation of gender-sensitive alternatives to incarceration for drug-related offenses in OEA's member states. So our main framework for this is the Hemispheric Drug Strategy and its Plan of Action on Drugs, which emphasizes the need to design, adopt, and implement alternatives to incarceration for minor or nonviolent drug-related offenses with a gender, age, cultural perspective, as well as a respect for human rights. So with this project, we aim to address gender imbalances in access to justice, services, and other issues that impact differentially men, women, and individuals with non-normative sexual orientations. So during the first phase of the project, conducted between 2018-2022, CCAD carried out diagnostic studies in 5 countries: Argentina, Colombia, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, and Jamaica, to better understand how sensitive the criminal justice system is to gender when offering alternatives to incarceration for low-level drug-related offenses. So these diagnostics allowed us to analyze the existing legal and institutional frameworks in these countries, and also to obtain gender disaggregated baseline data for individuals entering the justice system for drug-related offenses. So I want to share our findings regarding the women from the sample. So most of these women participating in the study were single with an average age of 30 years old. And in most cases, they had not previously been arrested for another crime. So the most common offenses for which they had been arrested were theft and assault. And the studies also revealed a widespread poverty and inequality among these women, along with barriers such as lack of access to legal services, underemployment or unemployment, drug dependence, asymmetrical power relations, low levels of education, and domestic violence. So drawing from these findings and insights shared by experts during the trainings and awareness raising activities, in the phase 2 of the project that we are currently underway, we developed this compendium of promising practices on ATIs for drug-related offenses with a gender perspective. These practices, they represent a significant step forward, though they are not yet considered best practices. So it's important to note that this document that I'm sharing with you today adopts a broad definition of ATIs, including all legal measures, strategies, programs, or policies to seek to reduce the entry into the criminal justice system, to limit the use of custodial sentences, and reduce its length. So these include offenses directly related with drug use, crimes committed under the influence of drugs, and also those driven by the need to obtain money for drugs. This includes offenses, these practices offer individuals the option to participate in treatment and rehabilitation programs supervised by the judiciary and coordinated with multidisciplinary teams rather than incarceration. So they focus on addressing the root cause of the offenses and not just the symptoms. And they employ a multi-sectoral approach, engaging various stakeholders, the judge, the prosecutor, the public defendant, the health and social service and community sectors together. So we classified these alternatives to incarceration according to the phase of the court proceedings in which they are applied. So we can find pretrial measures. These are those that allow the person to avoid the criminal justice system. The most important examples include, for example, the use of measures to remove minor offenses from judicial process, moving them to the administrative arena with the imposition of fines. Other could be changing the prosecution policies, using alternatives to imprison that are community-based or that are based in treatment programs. Then we have the procedural measures. These are those used during the phase of the prosecution or the trial as such, and they can include modifying sentences, prosecution diversion programs, special courts like drug treatment courts. And then we have post-trial or post-sentencing measures. In this case, they are applied after the offender has been sentenced and consist of mechanisms that work to substitute or to reduce the incarceration for drug-related offenses. So examples include probation or early release programs, as well as pardons. And then we added a fourth category, which is a multi-phase measure that operates during 2 or more phases of the criminal proceedings. Generally speaking, these are norms and case law of the superior courts that enable judges to give priority to measures other than imprisonment, such as precautionary measures or institutional protocols on a gender perspective that may influence the way in which alternative measures are applied. So here you will see a summary of some of the promising practices we've identified in different countries according to the stages of the proceedings that I've told you. And I would like to share not only these practices, we don't have enough time today, but some of the findings of these practices. So first of all, women who are in prison have been living in a setting of significant social and economic violence. I'm sure I'm not saying something new to you, but there is a positive correlation between them and drug-related crimes. That's what we find with all these promising practices. Most alternatives are identified in the procedural and post-procedural period. We lack of some of the pretrial alternatives. And these practices tend to be little known beyond the criminal justice, health, and social service operators that implement them. That's why it's really important to keep sharing and creating awareness. This practice identified focus mostly on legislative measures related to women's roles as mothers and caregivers. And it's crucial to highlight the vulnerability of children and adolescents to have incarcerated parents, and no practices have been identified that specially addresses the needs for individuals with non-conforming sexual orientations or gender identity. And well, the final thoughts that I would like to share with you regarding all of these, and hoping that this information can be of help, is that despite the fact that many criminal justice systems lack of infrastructure for intensive impact evaluation, it is still possible to obtain information on drug use and criminal offenses with the gender perspective through the development of the appropriate tools and procedures. And that's why we are working on this. These evaluations require sensitive and robust coordination among all the stakeholders within the criminal justice system, and it's crucial to advocate for the integration of a gender perspective into the effective monitoring and evaluation mechanisms within the criminal justice system. Incorporating gender perspective in data collection is the key diagnostic process. And of course, the design and monitoring of evaluation system enables the developing of more targeted and efficient interventions. I hope all this information can be of help. And of course, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present our work, for your attention, and I remain at your disposal in case you want to access some of these diagnostic studies or the compendium. So I guess I will see you soon. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sol. I sure am very excited to hear more about the promising practices, especially with regard to the gender sensitive alternatives to incarceration. Our next speaker is Chinta Maharaj. She's the Chief Probation Officer from the Ministry of National Security of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you for affording me this opportunity to share with you the Trinidad and Tobago case care management experience. The case care management pilot project was launched in Trinidad and Tobago on the 21st of September, 2021. What exactly is case care management? Case care management is an initiative carried out with the technical support of the Executive Secretariat of the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission of the Organization of American States, CICAD-OAS, and the U.S. Department of State, INL. Thank you both for your unwavering support. What does CCM do? CCM benefits the criminal justice system by increasing the impact of existing alternative to incarceration programs through better social integration options for populations with substance use disorders. This is indeed a very vulnerable population, and the main goal of CCM is to systematically support these clients access the needed services and ensure that these services are coordinated amongst all agencies and providers. This was very necessary in Trinidad and Tobago, as these services were offered on an ad hoc basis and was not really very efficient. So CCM aims, from the client point of view, to prevent persons from recycling through the justice system, the revolving door syndrome as we call it, reduce clients' consumption of substances, enhance clients' levels of functionality, and promote their successful reintegration back into the community. It is generally a win-win situation. In order for any initiative of this nature to be successful, there must be buy-in at all levels, especially the political leadership and the support of all key stakeholders who will ensure that these services are offered to the clients that we are serving. So ministerial approval for the initial CCM training was done in January of 2020, and the featured speaker at that time was the Chief Justice, who at that point in time, we realized we had validation at that level. So we are all very excited. We presented and we presented the opposition paper in March of 2020 to our permanent secretary, who is the administrative head of our ministry, and it was approved. We created the case care management core team in March of 2020, which would have been officers who were focused on the development of the CCM. And these would have been from OAS together with probation services. We had ministerial approval for the implementation of case care management in May of 2020. And if you realize, this is the time that the COVID pandemic hit. So even though we were unable to, we were unable to meet physically, we used the virtual platform and we were able to secure our training, etc. Identification and the formal engagement of the multi-sectoral oversight team. This was in November of 2020, and I will explain what the multi-sectoral oversight team comprises of. The identification and utilization of existing resources for the implementation of CCM, and this from January to June of 2021, where we were able to identify resources already in existence at the Probation Services Division. Apart from a physical space, probation services already had a cadre of trained professionals who were trained in probation work in terms of probation officers and community service officers who would have been assigned to the CCM unit. In that way, it was a lot easier to get cabinet approval because we did not ask for additional resources, which was very difficult in that trying time with the pandemic. So we got cabinet approval for the launch of the CCM pilot project in September 2021. Now, the case care management multi-sectoral team was very important for the implementation because this is where a lot of representatives with decision-making powers were able to assist the CCM in moving along. So under the Ministry of National Security, thankfully, Probation Services is a unit under the Ministry of National Security. So there were other agencies that were part of this multi-sectoral oversight team. So buy-in there was also very easy. So we had representatives from Probation Services, electronic monitoring, the research unit, the legal unit, the monitoring and evaluation unit, which was really very important because monitoring and evaluation is something that we need to improve in Trinidad. And with this project, we had a particular way of doing our monitoring and evaluation. Also, the National Drug Council, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service. We needed the judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago on board, especially seeing that we would get referrals to the program from the courts. Ministry of Education will offer technical and vocational training. Ministry of Health will do drug testing, among other things. Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. There's always a need for housing as far as this population goes. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services, who offer financial assistance and various other grants that could assist our clients. The United Nations Development Program, they are always excited to provide training and other resources that we might need. And the civil society representatives who provide much needed social services, seeing that a lot of the services offered to our clients come from faith-based organizations and community-based organizations. How did we operationalize the CCM model? This was something new to Trinidad and Tobago. We would have had programs before, but this was something totally different. We needed to know exactly how we were going to implement the CCM model. We got assistance from OAS CCAD, who provided a consultant in terms of helping us develop an operational manual and the mapping reports. The operational manual was a step-by-step manual at every stage of the process. And the mapping report, we utilized all the agencies that we would have been reaching out to as probation officers over the years, and we formed a mapping report of all these agencies. We got technical assistance, training and support from CCAD OAS for the CCM workforce. Those are the workers who will be in the CCM unit, and for all the stakeholders in terms of what is expected of these stakeholders. They also provided mentorship training and training for mentors. And these mentors, the mentorship program actually was seen as very important in the Trinidad and Tobago scenario, and something that is much needed. So we would have identified mentors from the community, and officers would have made recommendations based on their interaction with these mentors for this particular part of this program, the mentorship program. And we also had the creation of a point-based system for graduation, because we were not sure how these clients will proceed to graduation. And of course, it will all be based on their accomplishments during the period of time they were under CCM supervision. So the standardization of the CCM processes and functions, including monitoring and evaluation. This would have been, it's a very individualized, strength-based approach, and it is based on the individual's strengths and needs, with solution-focused planning that is care-infused. And this care is at every stage of the process. So from the time the client comes into probation services, there's an intake process, there's a screening process. You know, they will be part of the program. There's a scientific tool that we utilize for the assessment. There's a planning in terms of the individual planner, the individual person. There's an individual plan. There's data collection, and of course the mentorship and the linkages with the different services, monitoring and evaluation. And of course we have the graduation, which is contingent on their attendance and whatever they would have done during the program. And most importantly, there's aftercare and follow-up. So basically it is all about wraparound services infused with care. This here is the case care managers at work. I have a very well-trained cadre of officers from Trinidad and Tobago, because we wanted not only Trinidad to be part of the pilot project, but Tobago too, and other to ensure that the other jurisdictions in Trinidad and Tobago would be represented in this pilot project. So these officers, of course, even though they are trained social workers, they must have leading principles of CCM managers, which includes the active listening and non-judgmental interaction. They must be able to build trust with their clients. They must be able to advocate on the client's behalf. They must secure warm referrals and to services, and must follow up. This was lacking prior. So now that they have to be able to match the clients with CCM mentors for this additional layer of support. They must be able to record meetings and their progress and everything on their database to ensure that the monitoring and evaluation is a lot easier and it is systematic, and engage the recovery support network for the client and the community, which is also very, very important. And we also conduct a one-year follow-up after the graduation, and there's always an open door policy upon graduation. So the conclusions and the lessons learned. In this picture, you will see the graduates. We had 13 graduates. I think there's 11 represented here. And what we have learned is that the CCM program enhanced the coordination and integration systems at Probation Services Division. Like I said before, it was pretty ad hoc, and then it has now become, these services have now more streamlined, and they are offered in a more timely and efficient manner. The clients and the partners have recognized the value of the program, which is really very good. And they are even asking for a support group for the parents and the significant others of these clients, which I know that is progress in its true sense. 13 graduated in 2023, and they met the requirement of the point system for graduation. The pilot project concluded in September of 2023. And currently the program has 40 participants. 17 of these decided to continue to be supported under the CCM model after graduation. And since the launch, the CCM program has welcomed 67 participants in total, which I think is really very, very, very good. Seeing that it has gone beyond my expectation as a chief probation officer in a very, very, very humbling way. So cabinet approval has also been sought to formally continue the program, and I know it is going to be part of the way probation services operate in Trinidad and Tobago. And I know ESC card is coordinating an independent evaluation of the CCM pilot in Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you very much. You can see my contact details. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be very happy to do so. And I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Sintra. I really appreciate how you showed the importance of collaboration and coordination between agencies, and this is best illustrated by the multisectoral team that you have showed us, and really the importance also of monitoring and evaluation in integrating it in your framework, and even the most simple thing as an operation manual, just to make sure that everyone in the organization knows their responsibilities. Our next speaker is Ian. He's the principal advisor of the New Zealand Police. He will speak about resilience to organized crime in communities. Ian?
Kia ora. Kia ora all. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly, so bear with me. Can people see that screen?
Not yet.
No? The intricacies of internet online
Okay.
working.
Ian, I've got your back if you need me. This is Sarah.
If you wouldn't mind, that would be, yeah. If you wouldn't
Sure
mind,
thing.
Sarah, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hopefully this is the right presentation. Is this the right one?
Yes, that is it.
Perfect.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to you. I'm here to talk about New Zealand Police's Resilience to Organised Crime and Communities work program. At the core of it, the ROC program is an acknowledgement that organized crime is a social issue as well as an enforcement issue, and it needs to be addressed from a social and a justice sector pathway. And just arresting people will never be able to arrest their way out of the problem. So it needs to be focused from a supply and demand aspect. In light of this, in 2019, the New Zealand government introduced 2 cross-agency work programs to address the supply and demand for organized crime in our communities. Sarah, would you be able to forward the slide? Thank you very much. The Transnational Organized Crime Strategy is aimed at target hardening New Zealand. It focuses on strengthening borders and enabling operational agencies to reduce the supply of illicit commodities into New Zealand. ROC focuses on reducing the demand in our communities and is currently focused on especially methamphetamine. This end-to-end response acknowledges that we have to address supply and demand at the same time. For example, focusing on stopping drugs coming into New Zealand won't have any impact unless we are also supporting our communities to reduce the use of methamphetamine and therefore reduce the demand which fuels supply. These 2 work programs are implemented by a dedicated team who work on behalf of 34 government agencies represented across the New Zealand justice, health, and social sectors. Slide, please. So what is resilience to organized crime? Factors that contribute to the demand picture are incredibly varied, and police do not have the right levers for us to tackle this alone, but then neither does any agency. In New Zealand communities, the factors that drive people to join organized crime groups are reinforced by the multiple harms of criminal activity impacting individuals, families, and communities. Harms can include mental health, addiction, violence, firearms, and other drivers of crime. ROC recognizes that addressing the well-being, harms, and drivers is a social issue requiring a coordinated response, combining community development, prevention, and law enforcement. It focuses on how we respond to the demand through enforcement action and having wraparound support available. Through the development of these support networks, we are making it easier for communities by removing people from the justice pipeline and by having partner agencies take responsibility for social and health aspects, allowing police to focus on their core roles. Early evaluations of the program and programs that ROC has supported have shown that they are effective, with between 1 and 3.2 and 1 and 6 social return on investment. So for every dollar spent, $6 of social return on investment has been found. And that example is from New Zealand's north, where there was a prison reintegration program, especially focused on on gang members coming back into the community. Slide. When ROC was first designed, it was the result of community consultation, listening to frontline experience, and reviewing the impact of previous operations and working with partner agencies. Based on this exploration and evidence of where the best impact could be gained from intervention, it was determined that 3 cohorts that should be focused on were youth on the pathway into the justice pipeline, those who are impacted by methamphetamine and its associated harms, and vulnerable families at risk from engaging in or being victims of organized crime. Now, from a New Zealand context, this might not be an international one. Methamphetamine is by far the highest vector of harm of organized crime in New Zealand. I think we may be a little bit behind other jurisdictions with fentanyl, but methamphetamine for us is far and away the highest vector of harm, at least when it comes to illicit substances. Sarah, would you mind slide again? Through analysis of drug and gang harm and using deprivation data provided by the New Zealand Gang Harm Insight Center and the National Drug Intelligence Bureau, we have landed on our current locations. It's not a national program currently, it is still more in a pilot and expansion phase. So we currently actually are in Northland, Counties Manukau, Bay of Plenty, Eastern, Pororua, West Coast, and Southern police districts. The approach in each region is informed by the overall ROC program, but it is really driven by regional priorities. Regional decision makers, alongside communities, identify regional aspirations and how they want to approach the issues within their community. These are codified into regional plans that allow the regions to be targeted in using their funding to address regional and community priorities. Each location has funding allocated to it based on the type of intervention and the harm levels within the community. Regional decision makers create local funding panels that prioritize funding to bespoke community initiatives. As I said before, we are in the early stages of undertaking evaluations, but preliminary evaluations have shown a considerable return on investment, social return on investment in these areas. The implementation of ROC is supported by a dedicated team of 7 people hosted at New Zealand Police. Most of these work on the ground in the region to support the implementation on behalf of police and our partner agencies, through the regional plans that are created by each location. To coordinate the response and reduce duplication of effort, that is really the core of what these ROC senior advisors are doing within the community. Sarah, would you mind slide again? ROC is a tripart plan. It has 3 principal pillars to its approach with supply, demand, and resilience. Supply is through law enforcement and investigations. We target organized crime, illicit drug supply, and those who cause the most harm in our communities. This is the pillar that police lean into most heavily. Demand is around the development of community capability and capacity to provide wraparound social interventions driven by the social and health sector. And then resilience is the combination of the two, strengthening community well-being and build resilience to the conditions that allow organized crime to operate. Slide. As I said before, no one agency has all of the levers to be able to combat organized crime within our communities. And so different agencies fit into the ROC framework in different ways and contribute in different ways. From a supply and enforcement aspect, that is 1/3 of the ROC approach. Only police has the levers and the ability to lead here. Other members of the justice sector support the supply side of things, such as the Ministry of Justice around changing legislation. Other agencies supporting the demand and resilience areas, such as New Zealand's Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. They provide employment support as well as regional development, or Oranga Tamariki, which is our at-risk youth development agency, providing and working with at-risk youth. The main focus at a national level is enabling regions to be able to achieve their aspirations and goals. This ties into the ROC view of a nationally enabled, regionally delivered, community-driven response to the harm from organized crime. Now, I've talked at a much higher level, more strategic level. I thought it might be opportune to talk through two examples of how ROC is actually approached in different aspects, different parts of the harm from organized crime. So the first one is an operation called Operation Pockery, which is a New Zealand police-led operation. It was focused on New Zealand's largest gang, the Mongrel Mob, down in a town called Mataura, which is in Southland, almost as far south as you can go in New Zealand. The operation terminated in June 2023, and the operation was designed using the ROC strategic framework. And so a key part of the operation included prevention and reassurance activities with ongoing support from the ROC program and its network of relationships. Slide. In the lead up to the termination, police worked with partner agencies so that they were aware of the situation and were able to start surging capacity to deal with the needs of the community. Across the Southland region where Mataura is, there are 3 distinct Mongrel Mob chapters with 61 patch members and 25 prospects. And this small group of people was responsible for most of the serious and fatal violence in Southland, especially around methamphetamine supply. So these were the ones that were targeted. So 40 warrants were issued and at least 20 people were arrested with 85 charges filed. Following the arrest, there was a reduction in overall reports about methamphetamine supply in the wider Southland region. And the same was true for serious assaults, which almost completely ceased. And that is a more traditional outcome that you would expect from a police operation. However, alongside the enforcement action and getting those creating the most harm off the streets, the way that the operation was terminated through the use of what we call family liaison officers, this actually allowed us to support families. The first people through the door in the operation were obviously our armed defender squad. However, the next people through were family liaison officers who were able to discuss and talk with those who were left and actually understand the needs and the aspirations of those families that were still there. One particular piece of information that we found quite startling was that there were 12 families impacted. There was 47 children within these 12 families that were under 15, and there were 8 children that were 5 or under. New Zealand government had no sight of those 8 children whatsoever. They were completely hidden from our sight. So that even in itself was a great find for us. However, we were also able to connect people to services. So the FLOs, the family liaison officers, were able to use the network that ROC had developed across government agencies and involve our Ministry of Education, our Ministry of Social Development, Te Puni Kokori, which is the New Zealand government's Maori development agency, and Oranga Tamariki, which is the at-risk youth. Sarah, would you mind next slide? So this is an example of one particular woman. She was living in a wooden house winter in Southland, which, as I said, is just about as far south as you can go in New Zealand. The house was so cold that they'd been burning towels for heat, and there was no food in the house except for dog food in the fridge. So this woman was referred to support services by police and had accepted help from navigators. She was able to access funding for a healthy homes grant, leading to insulation being installed and improvements to kitchen and her bathroom at the address. She had no driver's license and was forbidden to drive. A referral was completed for a local community mentoring program, and she has been able to attain her driver's license. She was also supported to attain a current warrant of fitness and registration for her vehicle, and she attended a workshop run by a local NGO focusing on newborns on how to put in child restraints in her vehicle. Her house is now on the market, and she intends to move far away from Mataura when it sells. She's been engaging with family court and recently attended a family care and protection family group conference and has made positive contribution in relation to the ongoing care of her children. Obviously, with 12 different families and a number of people, these sort of stories, they add up. And it's at the individual level that ROC actually sees the most benefit. As I've said before, we are doing ongoing evaluations, but it is quite difficult to be able to go and evaluate because a lot of the data in this area is quite focused at population level. It's hard to be able to go and prove attribution when you're focused on quite a small cohort of people and then be able to actually show and how it's changed a population level. So we focus a lot on individual stories, on individuals themselves, and actually talking about how that has gone and changed and changing the entire system. So onto a second example. So Sarah, would you mind? Yeah, thank you. This second example, if the first one is based around police response, this one is the health response. This was a town called Murupara, which is in the Bay of Plenty, further north in New Zealand. Murupara has one of the highest uses of methamphetamine in New Zealand. And this is a town of 1,700 people. They had a use of 2,285 milligrams a day per 1,000 people, compared to the national average of 500 milligrams per day per 1,000 people. So we have an almost 5 times higher use than the rest of the country. 1 in 2 people in Murupara use methamphetamine, and it has the population is 80% Maori, which there are already issues around Maori access to healthcare in New Zealand. So health agencies provided funding to support the development of targeted services in 2022 to address methamphetamine use and addiction for users in Murupara. As I said, the Ministry of Health led this, and partner agencies support the program at a local level. The program is called Tiahi Maori, and it's a meth harm reduction program that operates out of a counseling service within the town. The model is a wraparound service with a no wrong door ethos, and is based one that has actually been developed further up the North Island in a place called Northland. From a police perspective, pardon me, from a police perspective, police find this incredibly helpful, and we are able to refer to the program through our referral applications on our phones. And so and again, this is in a town of 1,700 people. There's a referral rate of between 2 and 6 people a week from police. And this has improved trust and confidence in police because it has given us an alternative resolution rather than having to put people into the justice pipeline. They've also introduced 2 new youth programs to intervene at earlier stages to deter youth from methamphetamine addiction. We're also supporting getting those within the program into education and employment pathways. The Ministry of Social Development has earmarked funding to support the education and employment pathways. And this has become about because of ROC's involvement in Te Ahi Maori, which has brought education, the Ministry of Social Development, and our regional public service commissioners into the fold. Sarah, would you mind one more slide? Oh, sorry, one more slide. I keep on forgetting about that one when I present.
Sorry.
That's all good. So again, I wanted to look at this at an individual level. This is Kay, an adult female living in Murupara. She's been battling addiction for 23 years after she was introduced to methamphetamine while at high school. This led to her using, hanging out with gang members, and has impacted her children and her grandchildren. It's damaged to her health and her well-being. She lost her home through firebombing through her engagement with gang members, and has led to severe mental health issues around shame, depression, and paranoia. When she was at her lowest point, one of her sisters, who worked for the Te Ahi Maori program, engaged with her, and she's now been 19 months free of methamphetamine use. And she credits that to both the 24/7 support that's available through the navigators, but also the culturally appropriate way in which the Te Ahi Māori program engages. So it uses a lot of Māori ideas. So Te Ao Māori is the term for the Māori view of the universe and how everything is connected. Whakapapa is the name that is used for your connection back to the past and to your wider tribe and your bloodline. And Kay has been, through the Te Ahi Māori program, has been reconnected to her wider family, her wider whakapapa, and actually reintroduced to the Te Ao Māori universe, which has really reignited her passion for that cultural aspect in her life. And that has actually been the launching pad for how she's been able to get support. Her 19 months free has meant that she is now able to actually get employment, and she is a person of lived experience for a counseling service for people using methamphetamine. So she is trying to give back to the same community that she came from. So that's sort of a very, very quick overview of the program, looking at two individual areas. Sarah, if you want to move to the next slide, it's oh no, this, you're using an older version. I will put my contact details in the chat. I saw that someone was interested in that, but I just again wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity to come and talk to you about this program that is really making a really great impact into the New Zealand community. So thank you very much again.
Спасибо, Ян. Здравствуйте, уважаемые участники. У нас осталось немного времени. Мы можем обсудить, задать вопросы нашим лекторам. Мы прослушали 3 очень интересных сообщения. Мария поделилась с нами об особенностях гендерных аспектов при применении альтернатив тюремному заключению. Очень интересная классификация альтернатив и то, что большинство мер должно применяться на этапе досудебного. На досудебном этапе это несомненно, это очень важно и очень эффективно. Второе сообщение мы послушали госпожу Синтру по индивидуальному комплексному сопровождению. Очень интересный пилотный проект. Он показал свою эффективность и то, что он позволяет спрофилактировать повторное попадание в места лишения свободы, улучшает ресоциализацию. То есть, я думаю, что мы все будем иметь возможность более детально ознакомиться с материалами данного сообщения. Ну и спасибо, Ян, очень интересная работа по работе с сообществом. То есть здесь мы на данную проблему посмотрели уже с другой стороны, со стороны роли именно сообщества. И несмотря на то, что пока количество участников данной программы оно маленькое, но несмотря на это, за каждым человеком, за каждым ребенком, за каждой семьей как бы это большая работа, скрывается очень много проблем, решение которых позволяет вернуть в общество не только человека, который имеет конфликты с законом, скажем так, но и помочь его семье. И роль общества здесь, конечно, несомненна. Большое спасибо. Если есть вопросы, пожалуйста, можете поднять руку или написать в чат.